Welcome to the Brass Junkies, a podcast from the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network featuring interviews with the world's greatest brass players by two thoroughly average ones, Lance LaDuke and myself, Andrew Hitz. Today's episode features Michael Parker of Parker Mouthpieces, mouthpiece maker, tuba player, college professor, and all-around great musician. Michael has taken the brass world by storm in a short amount of time with his stellar new line of mouthpieces. He talks all about how he became a mouthpiece maker, tells a doozer of a tale from when he and I were roommates at Northwestern, and shares a moving story about a special connection he feels to his late father. Next. Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Brass Junkies with your hosts Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. How are you doing, Lance?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to talking to Mike for a long time, so this will be fun. I mean, Michael.
All right. Our guest today is Michael Parker of Parker Mouthpieces. How are you, Michael?
I'm very good, Andrew.
Mike and I have known each other for a very, very, very long time. We were at Northwestern together. We were roommates. Pray for Mike. And I've known him as Mike forever, but he has informed me that professionally that he goes by Michael. So he's all grown up, and he's a small business owner, and he's added a syllable to his first name. And yeah, it's very fancy. So and he seems more mature as well. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Michael?
No.
Yeah, thank you. This is, we'll plug our website and then we'll go. All right. So Michael is a fantastic mouthpiece maker who is new to the scene. When did you make your first mouthpiece?
We started designing the first mouthpiece in October of 2012. And we actually we got the first prototypes just a few weeks before the Army Band Conference in January of 2013. Literally just days before. If you remember, you were actually in China, and I had to come to your house in the middle of the night, drove down from the shop in Philly.
I forgot that.
Yeah, and because we wanted to get your approval, obviously, because you were leaving on tour to China with Boston Brass, and yeah, it was crunch time. We barely got it done, and we're able to do our first exhibit here 2 years ago.
I totally forgot that story.
Yeah.
So there's a Hitz model of the Parker tuba mouthpiece,
Correct.
and so I hadn't played on it yet, and I knew it was going to be great, but of course I'm not going to put my name on it or endorse it until I play it, and I decide that it actually is. And there was, the production thing, and then it got pushed back a little bit, we were leaving. Lance and I both were leaving with Boston Brass for a long trip to Asia. I think that was our final Asia trip, I believe. Yeah, for each of us with Boston Brass, it was like Hong Kong and Singapore and somewhere else. I don't think Japan. I don't know. Anyway, this is fascinating, isn't it, for all of you as we take a stroll down memory lane. But the interesting part of the story is that I had like a 6 a.m. cab to the airport because I had like a 10 a.m. international flight, whatever. It was like a 6 a.m. cab, and that Mike actually came and got to my house like when I was in the shower getting ready to like go to the getting ready to leave, and that's when he hung the bag of mouthpieces like on the door, and he didn't want to wake up my wife or make my dog start barking, so he didn't even knock. He just left the mouthpiece in the middle of the night, and then I was gonna grab the mouthpiece, and then I flew to Hong Kong. So and the rest is history. So it was a crazy story. So how many lines of mouthpieces do you have now?
How many lines? Like how many models? Or
Yeah, that's what I mean. Lines, models. I know you people are all about decimal points and yeah.
Well, right now we've got I guess we've got 7 tuba models, and we've got 8 models for trombone and euphonium, and we're expanding. We're working on some more smaller series for trombone, and eventually are going to branch out. The Hitz model is probably one of our most successful pieces, and yeah, and closely behind that is actually the Chris Hall model. And with him, we're doing at least 2, possibly 3 mouthpieces, and so we might start another Chris Hall. We've got his medium contrabass model out right now, which is doing really well, and we might move to a larger mouthpiece for him. But yeah, we've just been kind of slowly adding pieces. At our very first show here 2 years ago, we just had 2 models, which was kind of intimidating, you know, exhibiting sandwiched right in between Giddings and Webster and Doug Elliott, and they've got all their pieces and all his pieces, and I've got my 2. But I mean, that's kind of how you build. It's a small business. We didn't take out any money to start it, and we're kind of trying to let the business pay for itself, and the success of the business allow us to grow, and that's kind of the direction that we're moving in.
What was the motivation for starting the company? I mean, do you have a mechanical background? Is this a thing you knew how to do? I mean, what was the process that led up to this? How long had you been thinking about doing this?
It's actually a seed that's been planted for quite some time. I'm definitely one of the more techie players myself. I've always been quite sensitive to equipment changes, and in the past I've gone through so many mouthpieces myself. I've had many custom made and cut, trying to find the perfect mouthpiece for myself, trying to become more efficient and just have better resources available to myself. And so that's something that kind of planted the seed. I don't personally have a mechanical background, although my father was a machinist his entire life. And he worked for Boeing. He made parts for engines and airplanes. And that's something that's sort of a special thing with me and this company is my father passed away several years ago before I even had thoughts of starting a mouthpiece company. But now that I've actually learned, I'm not just doing the designing, but I've learned the machining process and the buffing and everything, and I'm actually hands-on making these pieces. Every time that I do that, I feel, it might sound a little corny, but I feel like I'm with my father. You know, it's kind of a very special thing, and he was one of those people with a tin ear and didn't really quite understand a lot of my love and passion for music, but I don't know, this is kind of, even though he passed a while ago, this is something that's sort of allowed us to come together, or at least I have that feeling, that sense. And but yeah, I worked a little bit with Doug Elliott several years ago when he redid his mouthpieces. I was just kind of a guinea pig for him, testing out his various Tuba models, and that kind of planted a seed. You know, I got to see him in the shop and got to see what all these different variances could do, and obviously that was my first introduction to component mouthpieces with the removable shanks and rims, and that's kind of where it went. But I was actually on tour, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months before I actually developed my first mouthpieces or started developing them, and I was talking about my mouthpiece problems or struggles and just the different things that I had gone through in terms of searching for mouthpieces. And I was talking that over with the French horn player in the quintet who I was rooming with, and he mentioned that I should talk with Dave Hauser, you know, about mouthpieces. And you know, so that night I shot Dave Hauser an email and said that I had a few ideas that I'd been kind of kicking around. I had a few mouthpieces that I had really strong beliefs in certain aspects of them, and you know, I just kind of wanted to run them by Dave, and Dave said, come on up, bring your pieces, bring your ideas, and we got together and we met, and I wasn't sure what was going on. I wasn't sure if I was going to meet with Dave to spend a lot of money for a couple personal mouthpieces for myself, or if I was actually going to go into business. Everything was kind of a big question mark at the time. And I went up and met with Dave, and he was like, I think you've got some good ideas, and I think that you could probably sell this product. And so I went home and I spoke with my wife, and, you know, we crunched numbers, and that's kind of how it all began.
I'm a simpleton when it comes to understanding the mechanics of it and what happens and what any of it means. I'm much more of a plug-and-play guy, and so what were the things that you said you had some very strong or very specific ideas that you wanted? What sorts of things were those? What did they have to do with in terms of materials or shape or design, and what musical effect were you trying to come up with?
Well, I'd say for me, like a big goal was efficiency. And that's just, I'm a player. When I was younger, I did a lot of practicing. And in an ideal world, I would keep up with a lot of practicing. But, I'm a tuba player. I'm a teacher. I have my quintet. I have my freelance stuff. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I have all these different things that keep me away from that, heavy practice room kind of routine. And so it's kind of thing like I'm just tired of cramming, to get things in, and I'm just kind of looking for something more efficient to make my life a little bit more manageable in terms of my standards for playing. And so that was kind of pushing me in that direction. And for me, a big thing, obviously, like when you've got the horn on your face for multiple hours a day, there's a comfort issue. And obviously some people are more sensitive. My skin's sensitive, although I don't have any allergies, but definitely when I'm playing for more than an hour or two, I start to feel a little bit of discomfort just in the actual skin, not the muscle. And so that's something that, I was doing a lot of experimenting before I was making my own mouthpieces with Del rim or plastic rims. And I find that they're incredibly comfortable to play on. They're probably the softest option out there. But unfortunately, that was one of my big kind of challenges, is that every time I found a mouthpiece that I really liked, like a single piece mouthpiece, and I was like, this is great, I want this to be my player, I'd go and I'd have it cut. And so they'd take the brass rim off, they'd cut it off and thread it and make me a Del rim, plastic rim, and then put it on, and I take it home and it feels great, but it sounds completely different, because the weight's been changed. The mouthpiece weighs less. There's more weight in certain areas than others, and that was something that just kind of really was literally driving me insane. I found great mouthpieces and had great ideas on how to make them great for me, but it was just a balance issue. And so that's one thing that I talked a lot with Dave about was, weight balance on a mouthpiece. Like with the external profile, there's a lot that you can do, and that changes many, many different aspects, mouthpiece. Primarily, obviously intonation can be greatly affected by where the weight is. Slotting of a horn, like how well it goes into the partials, and even in terms of flexibility, if you're doing a lot of slurs and things like that, larger intervals. So there's a lot of factors and things that I just kind of had swimming around in this, huge melting pot, and wasn't even really sure if they were valid points or not, but they were all my own personal experiences. And that's why it was so great when I finally met with Dave Hauser, and he was actually agreeing with me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not just somebody with a hugely inflated ego that thinks they know everything. Like I've actually kind of figured some stuff out. And so that's kind of the direction I was going in. And I was very new to stainless steel when I first approached Dave, and I actually had quite a few hesitations about that, largely just from the buzz, that you see around. That there's some people that are diehard brass, there's some people that are diehard stainless, and there's little battles in between. And there's no battles. There's no
mouthpiece battles.
Yeah,
It's like the Sharks and the Jets.
There you go. There you go.
How much money do you think that you spent in search of the perfect mouthpiece before you made it?
Is my wife going to be able to hear this?
I promise that I will somehow block her access to all of the dozens of places you can find it.
Able to and interested in two separate things.
Yeah, that honestly, that's a hard question to answer, because I have tons of mouthpieces at home that aren't my own, obviously, that I've collected and I've hanged on to. But I've also gone through points where I've just liquidated mouthpieces, where I've just put them up on TubeNet or Facebook or something like that. And so that money's come back, and usually it gets invested back into mouthpieces. Although I did buy my first iPod with mouthpiece money. Did I just date myself?
You did just date yourself a little bit, yeah.
But it's really hard to say. Mouthpieces range, anywhere from $60 to $300-$400, and gosh, I don't know. I'd probably say that I spent maybe $5,000-$6,000 on mouthpieces, but I don't currently have $6,000 worth of mouthpieces still in my possession of others.
You've got mouthpiece overhead, like before you were even a mouthpiece maker.
Yeah. This show's called Brass Junkies, right?
It is.
Yeah,
You're a mouthpiece
junkie.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. So a funny mouthpiece story. When I was in the 8th grade, I lost my mouthpiece, and then my parents bought me another one. And then 2 weeks later, I lost my mouthpiece again. And they weren't happy when I lost the first one. But then when I went home and told my parents that I had lost my mouthpiece again, my dad was extra not really thrilled with the situation financially, with his offspring, with like a lot, with life in general at that moment. And he actually said to me, and he was not joking, that there were times when he thought that if there wasn't a certain part of my anatomy wasn't attached, that he swears that I would lose it. And I had I heard that as a 13-year-old, and I was not able to smile or laugh because it was not a joke. And that was like the one time when I noticed that my mother didn't react, but she then got up and left, and I think she went to the other end of the house to laugh, because it's just funny when your husband tells your son that. And it worked. I never lost a mouthpiece ever again. But yeah, do you care to comment on that story, Michael?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, you actually didn't lose those mouthpieces, Andrew. I have them, and you can have them back.
Oh, that's fantastic!
But
George will be so happy to hear that.
But you got to pay for them.
No, fantastic. Yeah, good.
I won't charge you for your artist model mouthpieces, but I will charge you for your lost 8th grade
Yeah,
mouthpieces.
there you go.
Because I really
in lieu of my next check, you can just send me my old mouthpieces.
To cut you a check, so forget about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Or even.
This is I'm fascinated by the process of it. Can you explain how it goes from an idea for a design, and then what are the steps along the way to getting the mouthpiece ready to sell?
Yeah, that's it's actually quite fascinating. It's something that I really love about the business. And in the beginning, I was exclusively just designing, and so when I went to Houser, I was giving him some numbers, just in terms of measurements and things like that, and he was scanning pieces and getting measurements, and then we put it into a CAD software system, which runs the CNC machines, the computerized lathes. And so with the CAD software system, you can actually use lines and slopes and graph and draw these mouthpieces, and it's really neat because you can actually layer different things just to kind of see how things are going to sort of line up and work out. And so you literally have these, it looks like something out of science class. You literally have this grid with all these, I'm really bad at holding microphones.
Yeah, pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Don't quit your day job.
I like to hold them at my chest. But yeah, anyways, you have these different colors and lines and things like that, and it's really cool to look at. And there's a lot of math involved, and that's one thing that I'm working on brushing up. Because I actually haven't learned the actual programming part. That's the one aspect I haven't done yet, is to actually put that into the computer and operate all those lines and things like that. But once you have that program in the computer and you can see it, then you upload it to your machine, your computerized lathe, which has several tool bits on it. It's got a Y and X axis that goes backwards and forwards and up and down. And then on the tooling bar, you can have up to, as many as like 15, 16, 17 little tool bits on it. And so you either run a piece of bar stock through the end of the machine, like a really long, could be like 6 feet long piece of metal, or you have smaller blanks that you're loading into the machine yourself. And you simply run the program. You push a couple buttons, and with the first one, you've got to check calibrations to make sure that your tool bits have been set up properly, and that actually takes quite a bit of time, sometimes as much as 3 hours. When you're doing component mouthpieces that have 3 pieces, that can take up a lot of time. But once everything's set up and ready to go, you just push a couple buttons, and the computer and the machine go through all the different machine strokes, and it's really neat to watch because the bar is just spinning, and one tool will come down and do a few lines, and another one will come down and do a few lines, and another one, and another one, and another one. And then when it's done, you have something very close to your actual finished piece. And obviously there's buffing, and sometimes you've got to rethread and things like that, and just kind of check on the quality of the metal. But that's essentially how it works.
Where do you do this?
Right now, everything's being done in Dave Hauser's shop in Norristown, Pennsylvania. And I go down there at least one day a week. When I have more time, I'm down there more frequently. My wife and I are actually purchasing a machine soon, within the next couple of weeks, actually. And so we'll have a fourth machine. There's 3 machines down in Dave's shop right now, but we'll have a fourth up in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. And it's actually a beautiful situation because not only will I be machining my pieces, but I'll be machining pieces for Dave as well. And so for the start, me just having one machine on my property, I'll just be doing like tuba shanks and trombone shanks and rims and things like that. And that's going to free up space in Dave's shop, so that he can kind of catch up on work and focus on all the other many, many different lines that he does and produces.
Let us know when you get the machine. It'll be fascinating. It would be really cool to do a follow-up and head to your town and grab some video of the thing in process. I just think it's fascinating how the whole, I was thinking 3D printing is, you hear about 3D printing all the time, and we're all going to have a 3D printer in our homes, and it seems to be the buzz. I teach at Carnegie Mellon, and so there's a big maker movement there, and people are always talking, they're working on a 3D printed cello right now. And is it feasible? Is it a good idea? Are the materials such that it's conducive to using with a mouthpiece? Could you print, quote unquote, print the components for a mouthpiece?
I'm not sure. I mean that sounds like that sounds very interesting, but I don't know. You're asking the wrong person.
Gotcha. Yeah. I have no idea what the materials are. My impression of it is that they're more of a plastic material, so I don't know that it's going to get the kind of resonance that we need. But what do I know? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, plastic has quite a different response than any type of metal property that we use. But I don't know. It'd be neat to see something like that.
It'd be fascinating. Well, and then at some point, you're just selling your plans. It could be. And then if it works, if they get the materials worked out, then you are the designer, and I can print a mouthpiece out on my 3D printer.
It's almost scary.
It is. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions, Andrew?
What is the best? What's the best story about me from Northwestern that it's actually okay for you to share on the podcast?
Well, I don't know if it's the first story that comes to mind, and I've got many stories. I really do.
By best, I mean amusing.
Amusing.
Yeah.
Amusing. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily amusing at the time. It was actually it was actually quite frightful. But there was one night in the dead of winter, which in Chicago is anywhere from like September 15th through like June 1st. It was probably more like actual like the rest of the world winter. It was probably January or something like that. But there was a lot of snow on the ground. There was a lot of ice, and
this is a good one.
It was really cold out, and I had gone to bed early because I had class in the morning, and I didn't want to miss it.
I did too. I just wasn't going.
That's right. You were kind of, Andrew was a year older than me in school, and
much more mature too.
And he was sort of a big brother mentor, and I saw a lot of the things that he did, and for the most part, I chose not to do them, and that has a lot to do with my success in terms of actually graduating from Northwestern.
Which I graduated in 4 years.
You did, and I graduated in 4.5. So somehow I should have followed.
Should have followed my lead, man, including this story.
Yeah, I shouldn't have gone to class.
Yeah.
But anyways, there was this one night. Gosh, I don't even remember what time it was, but Andrew and our third roommate, Ben Denny, who was a euphonium player in the studio, he still is a euphonium player. They came home, and it was early in the morning, and it was like the door just busted in. There was all this commotion. I was kind of upset at the time because like they woke me up, and I was like, these guys are rude.
I'm going to class in the morning.
Yeah, I've got to study. But yeah, they came in, and I came out, and Andrew had this huge, I think he had a bandage or something, or he had stitches.
Stitches.
Yeah, yeah, and essentially what had happened is Andrew and my other roommate in the dead of night, after several beverages, had gone out to the lake, and they busted these long icicles off the fence,
like 3 feet long,
that and probably several inches thick. The Northwestern's right on the shore of Lake Michigan, so the waves would crash up on the wire fence and leave these huge icicles.
It's beautiful.
It is. It's actually fascinating.
If you leave them there, they're beautiful.
Yeah, don't touch. Icicles are sharp, and that's where we're going with this story. So Ben and Andrew had taken the icicles off, and they decided to sword fight.
I wish I could blame Ben, but I'm the one that yelled sword fight.
There you go. They do that in the bathroom sometimes too.
Hey, you guys remember this podcast before it got weird? Yeah, me too.
Anyways. So Andrew and Ben had this sword fight with icicles.
It was
on the lake.
the very, very first, we weren't even doing it that hard. We just went to do it once, and our fists actually hit one another, and his icicle snapped off directly over his, right above his hand, and it inserted itself right into the middle of my upper lip. And if you've ever cut yourself shaving in the bathroom or in the shower, you just get a little a couple of drops, and when it disperses into the water, it looks like you just cut your nose off accidentally. Well, there's a lot of blood in your mouth, and then it was also in the snow, and it looked like someone had been murdered. That's how much blood there was, and we had to sprint across campus. We were with Russell Beebe as well.
Oh, okay.
We had to sprint across campus and ring the 24-hour button at the student health, and then the woman who was there 24 hours woke up, and then she came downstairs, and she opened the door and she went, "Oh," and then then she called, and then I got to ride in the back of a university cop car to the hospital, and then got to have stitches, and then I got to tell Rex Martin the next day that I was unable to have a lesson because I had stitches in my lip. And then he was like, "What happened?" He's like, "I don't think I want to know." He's like, "What happened?" And then I told him, and then he said, "I knew I didn't want to know." So yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah,
that's a good story.
quite memorable.
Actually, I have a somewhat parallel story. When I was an undergrad, it was about 3 weeks before my senior recital at Michigan State University. A bunch of my knucklehead friends and I went to the football game. Michigan State was playing Purdue, and so we piled in a vehicle and went down to West Lafayette, which is just gorgeous. What a beautiful, not really. Anyway, we were playing football in the parking lot, and I sprained my ankle, which then automatically I was the all-time quarterback. I just was quarterback for both sides. First play as quarterback, one of the guys who was quote-unquote defending me gave me a direct elbow to the lip, and I had a fat lip of epic proportions. And to say that my teacher, Phil Cinder, was disappointed would be understating it quite a bit.
And this has absolutely nothing to do with any of us or anything, but it still needs to be said. Our roommate, Ben Denny, there was the infamous pumpkin pie incident of Thanksgiving 1994, which this needs to be shared on a podcast. So there were a whole bunch of us. This was we just celebrated the 20th anniversary of this. Was just like 2 months ago. There were a whole bunch of us at Northwestern that didn't go home for Thanksgiving. And there was about 15 of us that all got together at George Huff and Andy Bove's apartment. And we cooked enough food. We just wanted to make sure that there was enough for Thanksgiving. We cooked enough food to feed like probably 60 people. I mean, it was ridiculous. And this big long table, and just the desserts alone, there was enough to feed a whole dorm. And so there were like 3 pumpkin pies that had been brought. We didn't really coordinate anything; just everybody brought everything. And there was a blueberry pie and an apple pie, and there was other desserts.
I brought spaghetti.
You brought spaghetti? There you go.
I didn't cook it, but I brought it.
Yeah. Always a popular dessert. So about like an hour after dinner, I go to get a piece of pumpkin pie, and I look, and there's 2 slices of pumpkin pie left. There were 3 entire pumpkin pies to start with, as well as all of these. There were probably 8 pies, and this is after Thanksgiving dinner and a gluttonous one. So I went out. I was just surprised that much pumpkin pie had been eaten. So I went out and talked to Ben, and I said, I was like, man, I took like the second to last piece of pumpkin pie. And he said, and he was like, yeah. He said, yeah, I had 2. And I was like, yeah, no, this is my second slice as well. And then he kind of looked sheepishly at me. He said, no, I had 2 pies. He ate 2 entire pumpkin pies after a disgustingly huge Thanksgiving dinner. And I remember we told Rex that because I thought he would be amused by it. And he was amused in a concerned for us kind of a way, not in an amused for an amused kind of way. So, yeah, the infamous pumpkin pie incident of 1994 featuring Lothar.
I don't want to bring the podcast down, but we were talking about, injuring our chops. And we've got a special campaign that we're getting behind. It was a good friend of ours, Jens Lindemann, this phenomenal world-class trumpet player. Just ask him, and teacher, and just won the Order of Canada, actually. So, and he's been having some chop problems, and so we want to do what we can to help him. And so we've started a campaign. So right now, the thing you can do is to just record a short video wishing Jens your best, and send it to pedalnotemedia@gmail.com. We're in the process of setting up a website where you can find out more ways that you can help Jens. Prayforjens.org is the URL. We're going to have some shirts, and we're going to do what we can to help poor Jens in this time of need.
Do you want to give Jens any well wishes, Michael?
Jens, just quit, man. Just quit.
Well, we were hoping it was going to be a little bit more uplifting than that, but that's what you get with Michael. See, Mike would have been a little bit more supportive, but Michael now is a world-renowned mouthpiece maker. Just ask him. So, all right, and I don't think we've mentioned that there is a LaDuke model as well, isn't there?
Yes, there is. That's actually one of my newest models, and Lance was very patient. Very, very patient. I mean, I forget when we first talked about it, but it was well over a year.
He doesn't play any gigs anymore, so he didn't need it.
But
Wish that was a joke. Anyways.
But yeah, there's a Lance LaDuke model. You can buy it. It's available, and I hope Lance likes it because I'm not going to change it.
It's great. It's funny you were talking about the comfort, and I, not to just be nice to you because you're already here doing the podcast and we already got you here. But the pitch, tone, slotting, I just instantly the way the mouthpiece responded was great, and I never really gave mouthpieces much of a second thought. But the comfort, when you were talking about that's the thing that it was this sort of in specific thing that I couldn't figure out what it was that I liked so much about it, but that's exactly what it is. I can play for a much longer time without any discomfort. When I'm playing, it's much less, I don't want to say uncomfortable, it's much more comfortable. So I don't know what in the world you do. I'm a monkey who can barely use the tool, but it's just a phenomenal thing. I'm really excited to be playing it. So sorry to say such nice things to you, but there it is.
No, I'm glad you enjoy it.
So, lastly, I am very excited that I'm going to be, you play with the Monumental Brass, and I'm going to be helping you guys and collaborating with you in, when is it, June?
June, that's
correct. Yeah, talk about that project a little bit.
Well, the group's been around since 1975, and
I've been around since 1975.
You have.
Exactly.
You're an old one there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the group's been around for a while, and we recorded our last album on Summit Records, and we recorded it in 2007 and released it in 2009. And that was actually a really great project to be a part of. It has a lot of the big standard MBQ pieces for people that have known MBQ for through over the years, and a lot of our original arrangements and things like that. And that did very well. And we're doing a new album. We're kind of breaking away from Summit. We're gonna release it on our own this time. Just kind of a smart move financially and things like that. But we're doing this new album, and it's great for us because it's actually all new music for the current group of players in MBQ. And we haven't firmly settled in on the theme, but so far it's kind of got an American music theme to it. There's a piece by Kevin McGee, who actually you guys recorded his piece for Tuba and Euphonium on your solo album. But there's a newer piece by Kevin McGee called Galleons and Cutlasses, which is kind of like a pirate themed piece. It's a 2-movement piece, and it's just a heck of a lot of fun to play. It's swashbuckler pirate type stuff, and it's just fun. It's a lot of fun, And we're also doing a piece by David Federer, that was written for MBQ, or no, actually written for the Annapolis Brass Quintet several years ago, and that's called the Bicentennial Brass Music. And it's in several short movements, and it's from the Revolutionary War era. We're actually recording a suite of Civil War music that I'm arranging myself. We did a job last summer for the Daughters of the Confederacy, actually here at the Arlington National Cemetery, and one of the pieces we had to play was Dixie, which we didn't have an arrangement of, and I did an arrangement of that, and the group really liked it, and we started talking about an album. They asked if I could kind of expand and make a suite out of it. So that's in the works, and we still have a few pieces yet to be decided. So we're still kind of working it out. We've got a rehearsal schedule all figured out, and so we hope it's a good run. And we're excited to have Andrew on board for sure. He's worked with us in the past. Actually, in our last album, he gave us a lot of really good insight and coaching, which kind of helped us get through those recording sessions. And so we're excited to have him on hand, in the actual recording sessions. So we're all looking forward to it.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. You got anything else you want to plug?
No.
ParkerMouthpieces.com?
Yeah. You could use a haircut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed that just yesterday.
Yeah.
I looked in the mirror. I was like, yeah, that needs to happen.
Yeah.
With a baby now, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't happen until it really needs to happen. And it needs to happen, but it doesn't really need to happen, so it's not going to happen yet. So, and Michael, sounds so mature, Michael and his wife are expecting their second child pretty soon, right?
That is correct, yeah. We've got another boy due April 4th.
There you go.
Yeah.
You got a name picked out?
No, we're still discussing that.
We should probably, I would say you name it either Andrew
or Lance.
Or Lance, yeah.
How about Lance Drew?
Like Lance Andrew Parker?
Drew Lance? And Andrew and Lance Drew?
We should probably decide it on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
No question. So if somebody wants to track you down, how can we do so? How do we find you?
www.parkermouthpieces.com. You can also email me at michael@parkermouthpieces.com. Phone number and stuff like that's on the websites. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. That's actually, Instagram and Facebook have been a really big part of our success. So if you aren't already following us on those pages, please do. That's where you can get the most up-to-date information about the products that we're doing and ideas and things like that.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, all right. And thank you all for listening. Have a great day. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Hank Attaway, Austin Boyer, and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.